So what would subjectively pretty art look like, or the opposite of transcendent? Would that be immanent in this case, or how would you make that? It's because we have objective truth and subjective truth. That's clear distinction. What would be the opposite of non-transcendent beauty?
Maybe something that, this is Dietrich von Hildebrand, that only appeals to your kind of emotional state of mind. It's what he would call subjectively satisfying, as opposed to objectively valuable.
There's a shallowness to it too.
Right.
Well, that might be akin to those sorts of pop music pieces that you capture instantly, but you can only listen to like 3 times and you're done with them.
Yeah.
Compared to some, well, there's lots of music like that, compared to something like a Bach piece, for example, that you might bounce off on first contact because it's very sophisticated, but with repeated listens, you can delve into it, and then it's inexhaustible. Right. So the question is akin to something like, what's the difference between something that's shallow and beautiful, or pretty, and something that's deep and beautiful? I would say too, if something's deep, it moves you in more dimensions simultaneously, right? That's like a definition of deep. And a deep story has multiple meanings and not just, so it's, something shallow and beautiful is exhaustible in its beauty, and something deep and beautiful isn't. It's inexhaustible.
Rearranges your consciousness.
Right.
Maybe I wrote about this many years ago, but there was an article in Rolling Stone magazine many years ago, and they asked rockers, what was the first song that rocked your world? And it was a cool way to state the question. It wasn't, what's the first song you liked? It was, what's the first song that changed you, right? And I knew right away what my answer was. Mine is Bob Dylan's Like a Rolling Stone, which I heard when I was 18 for the first time probably. And that's a song that continues to rearrange me. The first song I liked was Sugar Sugar by the Archies.
Right.
And I remember it vividly. I love it. I was like 8 years old and sugar, da-da-da-da. But it didn't rearrange my consciousness, I mean, so that might be the distinction.
So deep stories, like one of the things that's true of the biblical stories is because they're hyperlinked with other stories in the biblical corpus. So almost all their plot lines and characterizations reflect many other plot lines and characterizations, and so you can delve into them and never stop. And part of the consequence of that is that if you have an apprehension of one of the stories and you can see how it echoes with all the other things that it includes, it does have that deep rearranging effect, right? So one of the things that deep literature does is it brings you into harmony with the spirit of the literature, right? And that's akin to that idea that Christ was brought into harmony with the spirit of the law and the prophets, and partly as a consequence of being educated in the tradition. I mean, that wasn't all of it, obviously, but.
And the point you're making is missed by a lot of biblical people today, because the historical critical method came so to dominate the way we Catholics read the Bible that we missed that along with lots of other things. But you look, for example, at 1 and 2 Samuel, which I think is one of the masterpieces of the Old Testament. Whoever wrote it, we don't know who wrote it, but whoever it was, boy, did he have access to the other texts, because there's all kinds of the hyperlink stuff all through it. Like a phrase from Genesis suddenly pops up here. A phrase from Leviticus is now over in this part of 2 Samuel. So they were well aware of that.
And so the book is woven together in the same way that you described something beautiful, and all the parts serve the whole.
That's right.
And your brain is linked like that too. So this is actually the case that in many ways the structure of the Bible is reflective of the structure of the brain, even at a neurophysiological level. And that makes a certain amount of sense because the Bible was transmitted orally and had to arrange itself in a way that would be remembered. So you would expect a certain concordance, but the brain is arranged so that not every neuron is in contact with every other neuron, because that would just be, that would be a total. There would be just an absolutely undifferentiated unity of structure then, but that parts of it are linked to other parts, and parts are separate in a manner that optimizes both the simplicity and the complexity. And you have this exactly the same thing reflected in the biblical corpus, which is also why it's an inexhaustible book. Like there's an infinite number of pathways through it.